Good morning, my friends. I am super excited to be addressing the question, WTF is self-love anyways? There is so much well-meaning advice telling us that we need to love ourselves. And over again, we hear that we need to learn how to do this before we can love anyone else. But there is little to no advice on how we are supposed to do this. Is it just like affirmations stuck to my mirror, or repeating in the car every day, I am awesome? Or if I exercise a lot, is that self-love? What about like, oh, that shopping binge that I went on last week? I spent money on myself. Is that self-love? What if you have done all of these things and you are trying so hard and you look at yourself in the mirror with your new clothes and your worked out arms and that ring of affirmation circling your mirror, and you still look at yourself and think, I'm not good enough. Now what? So in this video, we are going to explore what it means to love yourself and what to actually do in order to make the progress that you are looking for. So, Tara, what are your thoughts on self-love?
Gosh, just when you were bringing that up, I could just feel so many people's like tenderness that they're really trying so hard to do something about, but never actually touching the tenderness of really what does it mean to matter to myself, right? I think that we're constantly in a space of defending. I matter. I'm worth something. Like, I have so much love to give. Why isn't somebody else loving me? But to like really get to that place of what does it mean to matter to myself? So,
That's a powerful phrase. What does it mean to matter to myself? And it's interesting because the way that our mind works is that we can project outwards, but it's very difficult for us to project inwards. And so to answer that question, I would challenge the people watching this to ask, what does it mean to help my child feel that they matter? What would I do as a parent to ensure that they know that they matter and that they are loved?
mhm.
And if I can come up with like, I mean, I can, any of us can come up with 1,000 things about how to make a child feel that they matter. And the idea here is to see if we can do those things for ourselves.
Mhm. It is, it's all of that. And the people that I talk to all the time, they're like, I have all the answers for everybody else, but like I don't have the answers for myself. And I find that this problem with self-love is like kind of threefold. One, we talked a little bit about like defending that I am enough, but not actually feeling enough. Um, the need to like fight for time for ourselves. We don't actually fight for time, we give it all away. And then comparison, right? And that whole comparison thing with other people can be a problem. And I just want to go into that a little bit because I tend to do it like even hanging out with you. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get enthralled by somebody else's genius, right? It's just like I get awed by like, oh my gosh, they're so great. And then there can be this uh, side effect that is like, they're so great, I'm not so great. Like the comparison instead of they're so great. And I love that. I love that I've surrounded myself with amazing human beings. Am I going to take some time out to look at myself and what I want to, like what you were saying with the kids, like what do I want to point out to myself? What do I want to amplify to myself and say, you're really good at that. It's a different genius. It doesn't look the same. And that really is okay. But don't miss out on taking the time of noticing yourself. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I love that. And that's exactly sort of what you would tell your child. If your child came to you and said, Mom, I'm doing this thing, but then my other friend is doing this other thing, and I feel like they're, better than me, you would go in with that exact monologue. Like you would say, like, oh, is that true? And isn't it great that you're surrounding yourselves with these beautiful souls who are having similar interests and similar passions to you? And that is exactly the essence of it. And I love how you've divided it into, you know, those three categories for people to focus on, because I think that just adds a little bit more tangibility to it. For me, the secret that like all the time is I ask people, I'm like, okay, well, if that was not you, what would you tell them?
Mhm.
And the child is specifically good for me because they're not a peer. They're, you know, somebody who needs my wisdom, needs my love. And if I can talk to myself as if I also need my wisdom and I also need my love, you know, then it starts creating a relationship with myself where I am automatically by default loving.
Mhm. That's huge, huge, huge. I love that you said that. Like, I need my love too. And just that, we often go, I need somebody else's love. I need somebody else. Like, who is the person who's going to actually say these things to me? Who's going to say in the right tone or in the right way at the right time? And instead of like raising your hand and saying, I've got you, like, I have you. You're never, ever going to be alone. You're never going to have to search for somebody else to say the things. Like, I'm going to always take the moment to pause and check in with you, like with myself, and say, what do you need right now? What words of, of affirmation or question or curiosity, or, maybe you need to change things up. Like, I personally think that part of self-love is the willingness to say no and to walk away from things that, like, it could just be things that you're personally choosing. It could be relationships, it could be others. And then also, like, as you're walking away, what are you walking towards? Like, we don't always just need to walk away, right? Like, sometimes we need to use that walking away to say, like, there's something else out there that I'm walking towards that's going to fill that time space experience instead.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so many powerful things. I don't know which one to start with, but I'm going to start with the beginning of your sentence there, which was that we expect other people to give it to us. And I think that's the root of that phrase. You need to love yourself before you can love somebody else. And because, and I have to share very honestly that at the beginning of this journey, when I was sort of told that I need to love myself and parent myself, I was mad. I
Mm-hmm.
had my initial feeling was I shouldn't have to. I
Mm-hmm.
should have people in my world who love me that way. I should have parents who love me that way. I should have people that rely on, like, I shouldn't have to do everything myself, including fill my own cup, you know? Like there was
Yeah.
this anger that was there. And we have a talk about anger, and anger shows us what we really care about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that showed me that I really care about me and I really care about me being loved. And it was absolutely a shift that I had to make inside of myself to move from that place of expecting external factors, external people to do that loving, to loving myself. And when I made that shift, everything shifted. My relationships shifted, my boundaries shifted. That walking away, walking towards just seemed to become innate because I loved myself enough to say, this is not for me. And what is for me, and ask those curious questions. It was a really, really big shift. And so I think it's interesting because doing that self-talk and working through the anger is
Mm-hmm.
actually what got me working through the self-love. Isn't that funny? Anger led to self-love.
Absolutely. I think it really is the WTF, right? WTF. Why do I have to love myself? I'm loving everybody else. Why can't somebody else do it for me? And it is that space of just embracing the anger, embracing the frustration, and hanging out in that space first, right? Because if you don't hang out in that space, you don't actually see what's underneath it that's like begging you, like, please just show up for me. Like, this would change everything. I love the fact that it changed everything. I have the same experience in my own life. I feel that both of our clients also experience that shift when you're just willing to show up. You're willing to have the tough conversations with yourself. You're willing to scream, whatever it is. I mean, I'll admit, I take drives. I live further out where there's lots of farm land. And so you just take the car, nobody can hear the loud screams in the car, Or like do the screams, like silent screams in the house. You can do it just with your breath. It helps you to get to those words underneath, because at first it's like, I don't know what I need. I don't know any of those things. And um once we're able to just tap into the anger, you're able to tap into what you do know, and then just start somewhere, right? So
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of getting into the layers below. And one thing I want to, point out to people is that when you love somebody else, it's not just one thing. Like we tend to want one solution. I just want to be able to, go to therapy and then I love myself. I just want to be able to, work out and have a healthy diet and then that solves everything. But it's not, it's all of the things. Like think of a thing that a human needs, like a child needs. What do they need in order to feel loved? They need to have, that shelter. They need to have that exercise and the healthy food, but a lot more than that. They need to have a safe place. They need to be able to express themselves fully. They need to be able to be celebrated for who they are. And if we can give that to ourselves in all of those facets, whether that's going into the car and letting our emotion out and having that conversation with ourselves like a loved one would to help us work through things, or whether that's making a choice in the moment about, what do I need right now? Maybe I should go for a walk. Maybe I should, not work for 5 minutes. All of that combined into one big whole, that's self-love. It cannot ever be just one thing.
Yeah, it's deeply creating a relationship with yourself, right?
Oh, that
Yeah.
is one thing. Yes. I love that. Yes, it is deeply creating that relationship with yourself. That is such a beautiful phrase.
And then it's also like, I think sometimes we want to do all those things for a little while and then like we package it up and it's like, well, then I should be fine, right? I did it for a month. I did it. Instead of being like, no, this is an ongoing, ever-changing relationship. And so a relationship, you need to keep paying attention. Somebody might like certain food for a little while and then it changes. And so you got to change it up, bring in some variety. And it's the same thing with ourselves. It's like what worked for me 3 years ago absolutely doesn't work anymore. And so I need to keep asking myself the questions, what do you need today? And one of my favorite questions at the moment that I've been having my clients work with, but also myself, is what would you like to experience today? It's been a game changer because I'm like, okay, before it was like, what do you want to get done today? What do you want to accomplish? And the experience is a little bit further from feeling. And it helps me to go, it helps me to lean into the universe, but it also helps me to just relax into, like today I said, well, I want to feel triumphant. And I was like, well, what, what in the world, what does it mean to feel triumphant? Right? Like I had to like go in and ask more questions. And so I was like, I just want to feel triumphant in more parts of my day. Instead of saying, well, I don't want to feel like I failed. It's like, okay, so what would feel triumphant? And it could be anywhere in my life. It could feel like, well, I felt triumphant taking the dog out and we had a great experience. It could be triumphant in the sessions that I have. And it's really prioritizing my own experience in that shifts kind of how I'm interacting in every moment of it. Because I'm looking for that experience, not a result, but an experience. So,
Yeah, and does that shift how you perceive your day? Like, because now you're feeling triumphant about something that you possibly wouldn't have before. How does that feel in your body? Like, how does that internalize and shift your perspective?
it does, because I'm looking for that experience. So it almost changes my whole cellular perspective. I think that we live, if we can live, from not just our brain, but our entire body. So it's like every single cell in my body is like, ooh, like I don't even know how I feel triumphant. So I'm going to look for it in all the different crevices of life today. And so it does. And I find for me, it's not a brain thing. It's not like I'm trying to be triumphant. I'm looking for the experience of triumph. And And then I'm looking for what does that feel like? Because it could feel totally different in each moment. So sometimes it can feel really happy. And then there's other times it can feel almost, I can feel shy because it's like, well, maybe I wasn't supposed to triumph there, but like,
Ooh.
woohoo, anyway, like I still had a moment of triumph, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big, big shift. And one of the things that I find is a big part of what I do is that whole brain rewiring
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on that feeling of triumph, and whether it's, noticing that, oh my goodness, I'm a little reluctant to feel this feeling, or whether it's, oh, I've embraced it, I feel it. It's all about being aware of it and grabbing onto it and like seeing if we can grow it and really feel it. And that's actually going to rewire our brain to make us more likely to be able to feel those positive feelings in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and more readily. And so I love that all of this, combines together, and that body thing turns into a mind body connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that came up when you were talking is the idea that, we know, all of us know that relationships take work. If we're talking about marriage, that's going to take work. If we're talking about, raising children, it's going to be ongoing. All relationships are going to be evolving. But it's interesting how we, again, don't see that in our relationship with ourselves. And it is a relationship. It's going to take work. It's going to evolve. It's going to grow. And there's going to be ups and downs and hard times, just like any other relationship. And working through those hard times with yourself, just like with your spouse or with your kids, that's what's going to make the relationship stronger. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to make you start trusting the relationship and trusting yourself. So if there's a takeaway there, it's just that it is an ongoing up and down roller coaster that we just work through and adapt. And the most important part is that we're
Yeah,
dedicated to being there for ourselves. And just like we're committed to our partner and are committed to our children, we're dedicated to having the relationship that we want, that's going to be healthy and supportive and wonderful and bring us forward into a better position in our lives.
absolutely. I think that whole the desire is important, and then the permission to do
Ooh.
it, right? Like actually giving yourself permission to invest in yourself, to prioritize yourself, to like cut out times in your schedule. Some things that personally I do is I actually have on my schedule different times of the day. I call them space, but really it's making sure that other things don't crowd me out.
Ooh.
And then the other part for me that's been massive is the willingness to see myself as whole, and that I will always be whole. And what I mean by this is I will always have things that are great and amazing and beautiful. And then I will always have things that are not so great or in development or things that I don't like. I'm always going to have things that I don't like about myself. And that trying to eradicate those is not self-love. Like trying to get to the greatness actually means that we're hiding parts of ourselves from us and also other people, which makes that relationship almost deceptive, instead of saying like, this is all that I am. And I also have, I also cringe at myself sometimes. So it's okay if you cringe at me too. And it's okay if you got cringeworthy things too. But I'm a whole being, and I'm working on loving that whole being, not just the parts that somebody did a little check mark and said, that's approved. And I agreed,
Yeah.
I need to
That
get
it's like,
agreement. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's like radical self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
It's accepting the whole person, just like, loving your partner. There's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a whole person there to love, pros and cons, for better or for worse, ups and downs,
Mm-hmm.
ugly and beautiful, right? And same thing with our kids. And yeah, reflecting that on yourself and realizing that you don't have to stuff those flaws away. You can accept and love and consider yourself whole, even with different things that are in development or different things that are just part of you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. So if you had any last words of wisdom for our viewers today.
I would just say that everybody can be loved in their wholeness. And I personally believe that's what we're all searching for, is somebody who will actually love us, not just in our greatness, but in all of the states of who we are. And we can raise our hands and be that for ourselves first.
Oh, I love that.
You.
Yeah. And I would just say, if you're going to start somewhere, start speaking to yourself as if you were a loved one.
Mm,
Start, like, notice that inner dialogue and just start encouraging yourself like you would encourage a child who is with you through every aspect of your day, whether that's cheering yourself on because you've done some amazing thing, or whether that's lifting yourself up because you're going through a tough time, and just sitting and loving, and even just sitting and holding yourself in quietness is something that you might need in any moment. So it doesn't look like one thing. So wonderful.
perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Gosh, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook. The best thing is just to look up TaraMcCallam.com and you can find me there. But I appreciate all of your visuals too. Like, you just make things so easy for people to see and really dial it out. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your tangibles because you make things very broken down into steps, which makes it easy to see. And so you can find me on my website, mindbs.ca. And we look forward to seeing you next week with another WTF series. And anyone watching, if you have a WTF that you would like answered in the self-care or emotional world, what does it mean to do this? Let us know and we will answer it for you. Talk soon. Bye.